day I thought I just said out loud to my husband, I said, if I could do one thing, like one job for the rest of my life, I think I would just want to do hypnosis sessions on past life regression sessions on people, because you just get so much information out of them. The practitioner gets so much and the client gets so much. It's like a win-win situation.
Absolutely.
And you have so much information about the world, about different beings and different things in history. You learn about, history, because as you would know from doing it as well, I mean, they don't always tell us the truth about history and what happened. And so to see it come out in hypnosis sessions of people's stories of what really happened in their journeys, I really love that.
Welcome to the Conscious Broadcast. I'm Danielle Kane, and I have a very special guest, Shannon, here today, all the way from Australia. So her and I are on literally opposite sides of the globe, but we love doing what we do. So we are here today to talk a little bit about her story. So I'm going to welcome Shannon. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yes.
I'm excited to be here. Really happy.
Yeah, we finally made this work out. And we were at one point, you were in Canada where it was going to align pretty easily.
Yeah.
But we'll share all about your life story and how you ended up in Australia. So, okay.
Sounds good.
Yes. So a little bit background on Shannon. Shannon Gardner is a quantum healing hypnosis practitioner of two modalities. So she does QHHT and SCHH Soul Center Healing Hypnosis, where she helps to regress clients into past, present, and future lives, also known as parallel lives, to help the client to heal from trauma, trapped emotions, disease, and more that are brought forward into this present lifetime. She also helps to remove entities such as demons, AI, energetic parasites, earthbound spirits, and any kind of lower frequencies that are attached to her client that should not be there. This also includes energetic cord cutting, property clearing, full body chakra rebalancing, sealing the aura, the energetic field of the client, that provides help with ways that her clients can protect themselves from psychic attacks, spells, or any other energetic attacks. I mean, come on, this is so amazing. And this is why I wanted to have you on today. So can't wait. And there's more. She's this multidimensional person that's still doing more. She homeschools her children. That's another one she didn't put in her bio.
Yeah.
But she's also a naturopathy student. So she's studying right now to incorporate plant medicines such as flower essences into her hypnosis sessions for added support in helping with emotional issues and trauma that her clients are working through. She helps spread awareness of health topics to empower others to take care of her own health. And she's also an aromatherapist. And she has her own channel where she shares this information and her website, which we'll share at the end. So, oh my goodness, look at you.
Yeah.
How did you get all this done?
Busy. Yeah, I know. And you'll be joining the SCH. Well, you have joined the SCH family as well. So that's great. You'll be doing the two modalities soon enough.
Absolutely. Well, it was because of you, and I haven't quite connected with Kaz yet, but I've saw you guys through, opening up and expanding my connections through Telegram and just the various groups there, which, have such power. That's what the point is, in my opinion. I know some people, after time, they have these channels and they're like, okay, I'm only going to stick to one channel, but that connection of spreading and finding one another, this is how we are doing it. And
absolutely.
Yeah. And
It's been amazing that we've all found each other like that. Yeah, it has. And I have no doubt that you and Kaz will connect. She's amazing. And that I'm sure you guys will end up doing a video together at some point.
Yes, definitely.
Well. Yeah.
Definitely. So I found Shannon through Telegram. She talks with Ian, who you've seen on previous episodes. And that's how I kind of found out what SCHH was. I was doing quantum healing hypnosis, very good at it. I do it very on my own time, but so far I've had great success. However, there's been those clients that just had a little bit of difficulty relaxing, not quite really fully getting to that state of
Yeah.
that deep connection of a past life. But
Yeah.
still some progress. So that's really how I was interested in what are these attachments and these psychic attacks. And I had friends talking about psychic attacks. I'm thinking, I don't know what that is. So
Yeah.
I ventured down the rabbit hole for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've noticed that it's not just people who are doing hypnosis that are realizing this. There's a wide range of different communities, and even, in the different religious communities now are noticing it. And it's just so amazing that in the last couple years that so many people have been brought to light about the entity attachments that are attached to people, that there's, a few years ago, it wasn't really that widespread or widely known. And I've noticed in the last couple of years, and even in the last year, it's just more and more people are becoming aware of it, through their own, even lots of my friends who are Christian, and who would never touch hypnosis, are
Absolutely.
also talking to me about entity attachments, and so they get it. It's
Absolutely.
and yeah, it is.
It makes
Yeah.
sense too, because when you start working, especially in the naturopathy field, I've had to search everything personally for some my own ailments, right? And through the process, I know we have parasites, but when someone's like, you have a parasite, right? And we clear it through supplementation, foods, and things like that. I mean, you can then understand why you would have a parasite, right? That's
Yeah.
attached. And if you've done any chakra work, which I know I've had stuck energy and it's reoccurring patterns, something's there. I mean, to me at this point, why can't I ever seem to get past those stuck emotions, stuck feelings? It makes sense that something is in there. And I don't know what entity's in there. And that's why you're going to hopefully do one of my sessions.
Yeah,
But
of course. Oh, yeah, I will
yeah, I
definitely.
would love it. I'd
And
love to.
I'd love to do a session for you, definitely. And speaking about the parasite thing, I mean, having this naturopathy background as well as doing hypnosis and working with parasites, energetic parasites, and that what I've seen being on both sides of, the physical health side and then the energetic side is that parasites are an entity attachment. They are. And, you know, we see them energetically and then we see them physically. It's the same thing, really. And, um, you do a parasite cleanse, and that's one way of getting rid of these parasites. You can also do it through hypnosis as well. And the food thing, what it comes down to is that high frequency. Like when you do a parasite cleanse, what are you doing? You're eating these high frequency foods. Whereas parasites are low frequency, just like these entities that attach to us are really thrive in, that low frequency environment. And that's how they end up attaching, which you would know from doing the course, the SCHH course as well, that they attach at times when we're feeling low or we're sad, or even like if you're a kid and you fall off your bike, you can have, if you've been injured or in a car accident, or
Yes.
you're depressed, or you're drunk, or what have you, it gives them an
Right.
opportunity to attach. And
And this is a
so
really
I've
important
been,
topic because, um, you know, we all go through trauma and accident. I mean, that's just part of the human experience. So that's why I feel like this is like the door that everyone wants to keep closed. And like, oh, we don't want to go over there, but we need to, because it's part of the process of getting full healing, really, and or know how to
absolutely,
manage good health.
it is definitely. And yeah, just like I said with the parasite cleanse, when you're eating those high frequency foods, it's those parasites are no longer able to be in that environment. And that's what we're doing through hypnosis as well, is removing them. And then healing your aura and your chakras and rebalancing the chakras and healing your aura, any cracks in the aura, and to get you back to feeling good and your vitality higher. And that, so that, you know, we have your body back to an environment where attachments aren't going to attach as much, you know? So,
And I can't wait to feel what it feels like before. Obviously, I know what it feels like before because you have years of sometimes the struggle with these attachments and or your whole life, right? To what does
yeah.
it feel like afterward? What is your experience?
Well, I personally, I had some attachments, but I didn't have too many when I went through the practice sessions. I wasn't riddled like some people are riddled, but I don't know if it's because of doing like over the last so many years, doing a lot of parasite cleanses, candida cleanses, and just working on my vibration um, and frequency a little bit more, just with the different healing that I was doing. Maybe it helped maybe to help create. I don't know why. I didn't
That's great though,
I
you know, but it's true. If
yeah,
you've
but
done the work, that's why so many modalities are great, whether you're doing nutritional healing and or if you're
yeah,
doing, I know you do Reiki because you've met with Ian multiple times. You guys have kind of exchanged and worked together. And
yeah,
you know, if you're doing anything that is clearing the channels and or just like you said, you're working with fluorescences. I know I've worked with that with my cats and how much that's
yeah,
cleared a lot of the anxiety
that's
and then
nice.
the
Yeah.
tension. So if you're working in these fields of so much, that can make sense why your
Yeah.
vibration's already where it needs to be.
Yeah, I actually had quite a few children attached to me. Children
Really?
who died, um, which yeah, I had children who were attached to me and it came up from a couple practitioners who had worked on me, including Laura and a couple others, that perhaps they felt that it was part of my soul mission that these children were attaching to me. And I was helping them to cross over to the light because I had a child who was hit by a train who was attached to me. I had a little girl. I had a few different children who had traumatic accidents and they were attracted to my light, who they kind of attached to me as for comfort, who
Mm.
didn't cross over, didn't know to go over to the light, who had attached to me. So yeah,
Were you
Laura
aware
and
of them at all?
no, not until I did my first ever Soul Center Healing Hypnosis session that I had was with Laura Whitworth. And yeah, I had one or two children attached to me during that session, and and then I had another session with Yvette from Og Healing, and yeah, I had a little boy who, I think it was a boy who, yeah, got hit by a train, and these children had these traumatic accidents, yeah, and they just didn't cross over or know to cross over to the light, and then they must have been attracted to my light and felt safe with me. So that's why they um attached me. Yeah.
That is fascinating. What a
Yeah.
what a way to have this kind of subconscious purpose, you know,
Yeah.
of
Hmm.
getting into this other modality, which I find really interesting, and how you are serving this purpose not knowingly to help the system kind of continue to. There's a reason why we're learning these modalities. I mean, everything's all coming so fast. Do you ever notice that? Like all of a sudden, all these things are coming into our lives. I mean, look at us. We're doing 4 or 5
Yeah.
different things at once. We weren't
Yeah.
doing stuff like this like 20 years ago, even. Like it was more like just one thing at a time, be the best at your craft. You know, everything had to be very like factual and the data and the details. Now it's more like I don't know, it's more fluid, it's more all encompassing.
Yeah.
So it's really nice to see that.
Yeah, because I haven't had that many clients that have had little children attached to them. And I've the majority of the attachments I've had have been little children who have had these accidents and experiences attached to me. So, and I have so much love for them. Like when I have had my session, it's funny because you don't think of having an entity or an earthbound spirit attached to you with a purpose. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I
Now,
was
do
like,
you
well,
go?
if that's part of my session
Yeah,
to bring these children to the light, like I help them to the light, I suppose. Um,
yeah. Now, if you don't
they're
mind me
just hanging
asking,
off me. I had one like hanging off the side of my leg, when little children like
oh,
hold on to their dad's
yes.
or something like that. I had one holding on to the side of my leg and just, they're pulling on me. And one of them was like kicking me because he didn't want to go to the light. And he was kind of like kicking the side of my leg.
Could you feel it
And
when
this
that
is
was being
like,
removed?
yeah. I
Wow.
had this all of a sudden had this like pain in the side of my just under my knee. Like I've never had a pain there before. And it was like this child is kind of kicking me because they didn't want to go. They didn't want to leave to the light. They were scared. And then
Yeah.
I just saying goodbye to them. I just had like so much love for them. These are earthbound spirits who have had lives and traumatic experiences and they had loved ones waiting for them in the light of source waiting for them. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's beautiful. Oh, Shannon.
Yeah.
Gosh, like this is how we get started. That's just one little teeny tiny piece of all that is
Mm.
you. So I'm so excited to hear more about that. And I have a quick question before we start from really your journey here. How how what would you say is your state in general when you go into hypnosis? Are you aware? Would you say, like, I know a lot of the clients are, their conscious mind is their vibration so high, so they're aware when they're in theta and or when you're going through the entity release. Are you there, or are you like more somnambulistic where you're out and you have to hear the recording back?
It depends on the client.
No, for
Some
you,
of
for
them are,
you.
oh, for me, I usually remember it. I've had a couple sessions where I did a whole entity release where I didn't remember any of it
Hmm.
um, until it was time to then go into the past life part. So I've had one session where I didn't remember and I had to listen back to that. Must have been really deep in that session. But for the most part, I'm aware, like I remember most of it usually for myself. Yeah. What about you
Yeah,
when you're under?
I'm pretty aware of what's going on. I remember the first time I went under, I was like, I didn't want to be like play into like some, here I am, the logical mind, because I'm going in there not knowing what I'm doing, to be honest. I was just
Yeah,
desperate.
the first session's always like that. I think because you don't know as a client what to expect. You're kind of
Yeah.
thinking, is this the way I'm supposed to feel? Or it's yeah, you gotta just let go and just
Yeah.
like
I,
kind
and
of
and I was so
yeah.
nervous. Talk about what Laura
Mm.
talks about. I was so nervous. My stomach was like, oh my God. I just, I was able to go under, but my stomach, and not only that, like we talked for hours doing the interview. So she
Yeah.
spent so much time with me, and then I was kind of hungry by the time we were under. And so my stomach was all kind of jittery, which probably would have been great for me to do the entity release. But I had a beautiful session, but I remember she did a great job just getting me relaxed and getting me integrated to then
That's
making a
good.
beautiful connection with a soul that crossed over. So,
Oh, nice.
which interestingly enough, now I'm wondering if part of him was an earthbound spirit. I don't know. That just came
Yeah.
intuitively to me that maybe through the process he connected with me and maybe I helped him further along wherever he is. I don't know, but he still comes and connects with
Yeah.
me. And he takes
Oh,
me to
wow.
source whenever, like he
Wow.
gives me a taste of source. And then I cry and
Wow,
I get all sad because it's the most
that's
pure love.
amazing.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
the most pure love. You just feel full of love. I don't know how to explain it. You just
yeah,
feel like all encompassed with love. And then
that's
he reminds me that I
amazing.
have to come back down here. And I'm like, okay, I know. I have to finish this.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like that. Yeah,
But
that's
it's
amazing.
interesting that just came to me. I'm like, I wonder if part of the process of connecting helped his journey a little bit. Because I think he might still need to be here and they can connect however. But I just thought of that. That was kind of interesting.
Yeah, or they might be a guide to you too,
Yeah,
if it's the same person, same
that's what I
being.
always thought. He was some kind of, well, I've had a lot of people work with me and say he's more of a messenger.
Oh
I have
yeah,
other guides, so that makes
yeah,
sense. But I'm just
yeah,
grateful, whatever it is. We can't really explain it. But it's
yeah.
interesting that I just thought about because he died traumatically too.
Oh, did he? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might have been an earthbound spirit then.
Right. Or
Yeah,
or he might serve an in-between role that we don't know. You know what I mean?
yeah. Or he could still be a guide, I suppose, because a lot of many of our guides had lives with us or whatnot as well. I
Yeah.
wonder if he's had a life, if you guys had a past life together. Maybe that's something you can explore in one of your sessions.
Yes, that would be. I would be
One of the
interested in that.
questions.
But I mean, I know he's capable of showing me, and I mean, through telepathic messages, the downloads, and he explained a lot. So that's for another time. But
Yeah.
let's get to you. Okay, so yeah, we got right into entity release because I guess I'm just so curious. But so
Yeah.
Shannon, tell us a little bit about you growing up, where you're from, and kind of maybe guide us a little bit about your how you ended up in Australia. I'm curious about that. And then,
Okay.
however you want to blend in your journey, if you had a spiritual awakening or if you were always kind of aware, tell me a little bit about how you came to be who you are.
Okay, sure. So growing up, I had a pretty, I would say, kind of a perfect childhood up until a certain point, you know. I There was probably no worries in my life type thing up until a certain point. Um, and then my parents sort of, I can't remember, maybe grade three or something, or grade four, the real estate crash happened in the 90s, and my parents kind of lost everything. They were developing, um, they were really into real estate, developing little subdivisions with houses and things with a team of friends and people involved. And then when the real estate crash happened, they kind of went from being sort of well off to losing, like going bankrupt sort of thing, my parents. And at that time, my parents were young and that sort of thing. And at the age of 7, um, I was always flipping and doing cartwheels and all this stuff in my mom's house and on her furniture. And so my mom put me in gymnastics, and I started when I was 7, and I progressed really quickly in that to the point. So I was training provincially, and then I was training in this group of 5 with these other women, including Yvonne Tusek, who was at the time, she ended up going to the Olympics and being like the best Canadian gymnast.
Wow. And so you're
So
from
I
Canada, right?
Yes, I'm from Canada. Sorry.
Yes.
So I trained with her, and it got to a point where, yeah, before I trained with her, that the gymnastics club that I was training in our smaller town was too small. It wasn't able to, didn't have enough equipment and the capacity to sort of where I could progress further with um, gymnastics and that sort of thing. And so my parents, they spent a lot of money on my gymnastics and my training. I was training 5 days a week for
Wow.
like 5 hours a day at the time. And it just basically took over my whole life. Like I didn't really have much of a life outside of gymnastics because I was training Monday to Friday, 5 hours a day,
Oh my
leaving
gosh.
school. Yeah, leaving school early every day to train in gymnastics.
That's
And
amazing though. I find like I'd love to see like if you have a video of yourself from the past at some point, that'd be so fun to watch. But gymnasts are amaze me what they're able to do.
oh yeah, it's pretty amazing. It was pretty amazing at the time. But because my parents, like their marriage was falling apart, and then we lived a few hours away. So they put me, because this gymnastics club wasn't able to, didn't have the equipment for me to progress and get better to a higher level. My mom had me try out at all these different gymnastics clubs around Ontario, and then she said, pick which one that you want to train at. Because I got accepted to all of them, so I chose one in Kitchener Waterloo, and it just happened to have um, this group of like 4 students who were training to go to nationals and then possibly to the Olympics after and that sort of thing. So I went there and tried out and ended up in training in the national group. And then so my parents drove back and forth, and then they decided to have me board with another family because it was, 5 days a week. So I was 9 years old, I think, and they just sent me to go live with this family. So I didn't even know. Their little girl did gymnastics, but she was in a different group to me. So I've just gone and lived with this other family at the age of 9 to board to do gymnastics. And I still remember the first night they were like, "Oh yeah, we got this water bed for you," and I was excited that I never had a water. In the, they put the water in the bed, and it was freezing cold. And so the first night, I remember just sleeping on this water bed that was absolutely freezing, the water inside, and I was frozen. I actually went and slept on the floor because was it was
So
too cold to
cold.
sleep in this bed, and I was just like so shy because I didn't know these people to wake the mom up in the middle of the night and go, "Oh, I'm freezing cold." That's a big thing, I think, to send a 9-year-old to go live
Absolutely.
with another
Absolutely.
family.
If you don't know them,
Yeah.
no 9-year-old's going to speak up like that. It's just like you're just like I don't want to. I think sometimes innately you're like I'm in their house. If I'm like
Yeah.
complaining, they could just kick me out, I mean, you're in
I was
survival
just
mode.
Yeah, I was really shy. So it was like I remember always being hungry, like because I was training so much and just not feeling like I was getting enough food to eat for meals and things when I lived there, and I was too shy to speak up and that sort of thing. So yeah, so my parents' relationship deteriorated, and then because they had lost everything, and then my mom said she was just putting so much pressure on me to go to the Olympics and all this, and she said, "Oh, we're going to move the whole family to where you're doing gymnastics, quit her job and get
Oh
another
my
job and
goodness.
move my whole family." And
Do you
so
have
I
any
just quit.
siblings?
Yeah, I'm one of 5. And
Oh my
so
gosh.
the pressure was just too great for me that I just went, I don't want to do this anymore. And I stopped because it wasn't because I didn't want to do gymnastics anymore. It was because my mom like was just putting so much pressure on me and then when she said she was going to move the whole family um just for me for my gymnastics, I went, nah, like it was just too much pressure for me to make it to the Olympics one day. And
I think
yeah,
your
so I
mom
just went,
probably saw the success that I'm sure everybody wants to be successful in their career. And here she sees my daughter has this opportunity, she has a chance, and thinking like this could turn you and in your whole family around in a positive way. But that's a lot to take on. And a lot of these young
yeah.
children and these stars, that's what the parents do. I think it's not really coming from a bad place, but that is so hard to put all that on one
Yeah,
person.
and I didn't have much of a life because I was just training all the time. But
Yeah.
so my mom was angry with me for years because I quit, because I was like, well, but ultimately I quit because they just wanted to move their whole life it was too much pressure for me to take on as a kid
Yeah.
for them to do that. So anyway, yeah, I ended up just going back to my older previous gymnastics club and just doing a bit there.
What does
All
your
this.
dad have to say about that? Like, were they together? Did they,
They ended
work it
up
out?
separating when I was in grade 7, I believe, or something. And oh no, they split up when I was going into grade 9. Yeah. My grandpa, who I was close with, got really sick with cancer when I was probably grade 6 or something as well. And my mom actually took naturopathy as well when she was younger. She was a nurse and then she decided to take naturopathy as well. So we grew up with a lot of home remedies, and I can remember her with doing iridology on us and looking at our eyes to figure out what was wrong with us. And so when my grandpa got cancer, she started treating him and healing him with herbs, and his cancer was going away with her treatment of different herbs and things.
That's
But my
awesome.
grandpa, yeah, but my grandpa was like really depressed from having cancer. He had his voice box taken out. I was really close with him. And in the end, he ended up dying not because of the cancer, but because he lost his spirit. So he ended up basically taking a lot of painkillers to end his life. But the night he died, I was at a sleepover at my friend's house in grade 7, and I had no idea that he went to the hospital and that had happened. And um, when we were kids, we used to try and do little
The Ouija
seances.
board?
Yeah, yeah, we did the Ouija board too. Not that night, but oh my, I would never do that ever again now that I know what that is and
Right. Right.
that sort of thing. But
Isn't it
yeah,
crazy how they were just like, yeah, sell it to kids? I
I
have no
know,
idea.
right? Like, because I know, I went to church growing up too, to like vacation Bible school and stuff. And then it's like, oh yeah, my mom was taking us to church on Sunday. And then we were at our cottage that we had on this lake, had a Ouija, it came with like a Ouija board. And it was like she was fine with us playing Ouija board, but then we're going to church on
I
Sunday,
know.
you
And
know,
it's like, yeah.
it's like, yeah. So we were, I was at this birthday party and we were playing, we were downstairs in the basement and we were trying to do this little seance. And then all of a sudden, we look down the hallway and there's this man that peeks out of the doorway of one of the bedrooms with this hat on and this suit. And I said, that looks like my grandpa, but he's not dead yet, you know? And then all of the girls, there was like 11 girls, all ran upstairs screaming, except for me and this girl, Eva. And I wasn't scared. Looked like my grandpa. And whatever that was at. And then the next morning, we were supposed to have the whole day of festivities for my friend's birthday. And my dad picked me up really early in the morning to go home. We lived in the country at the time. So I thought he was just picking me up early because he didn't want to drive back into town later to get me. So I was like, why are you picking me up early? Like I'm missing the rest of the festivities. And he just said, your grandpa died last night or whatever. And I asked what time. So it's obviously my grandpa
Did you
coming
tell
to
your
visit
dad or
me.
did you keep it to yourself?
I did. I told my dad about it. And just recently when I was in Canada, when we were supposed to have a chat, just my brother actually told me that my dad told him that he never believed in that sort of thing until when I told him about what happened with my grandpa or whatever. And then he started to believe and think that maybe there was more out there because of that happening. Yeah.
You never
So
know when you plant the seed. All of us, I think, have had that opportunity of like questioning, and
yeah.
when it really happens to you, um,
Yeah.
it's pretty amazing. That's really
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, so that's all. So you're at a pretty good upbringing, big family. lot of pressure,
Mm.
and this relationship with your mom, do you think that that led to a lot of work later on in the practice that you're
Yeah.
doing now?
I mean, yeah, I had a session where we did a cord cutting, where we had a cord cutting with my mom, and that improved our relationship significantly. So things that things from my past and that will come up in sessions with Soul Center Healing Hypnosis that people have. There's always these energetic cords that we have with our different relationships, even with our own mother, that sometimes need to be cut. And that doesn't mean that you're cutting your whole relationship with that person. It just means that, you know, the energy that's going back and forth, whether it's negative or positive, if that sort of negative energy gets cut, and it kind of doesn't affect me anymore. Her energy doesn't really affect me anymore. I mean, I love my mom, right?
Yeah.
I love her, but you
Well,
know,
we
and
all
no
have,
mother's perfect. We all have
right. No,
stuff, yeah, from our
and you know
past.
that too, being a mother. I mean, gosh, we all like, especially when
Yeah,
you're a mom, you know, it's one of the hardest jobs
it
because
is, absolutely.
you got to explore all the emotions that your children have, and you're just trying to do the best that you can. So I have a lot of empathy for both my parents because they both came from really tough upbringings themselves.
Yeah.
So for them to be the humans that they were for me, I mean, I'm grateful. They gave me a pretty good upbringing, kind of similar to yours. And then I have my own little traumas going on. But again, that's the journey. Sometimes we pick these circumstances to happen in this lifetime,
Yeah,
and it's all work
absolutely.
that we need to do. Yes.
Definitely. And through high school, I was always kind of aware of that the governments were corrupt, and I just knew that things weren't, you know, I wasn't buying any of it, even
Wow.
from
That's,
a young age of what was
yes.
going on. I remember a news.
What made you aware? Was there family members that were always questioning, or how did you become aware of
I have
what
no idea. I don't know. I just felt always different. I knew that I could do
just didn't
things. I
sound
could
right what they were doing?
Yeah, and I had little things happening where I was able to see something that was going to happen right before it happened. So my dad and I were in this car accident one time, and I I was laying down in the passenger side, and I had a dream that we were about to get hit by a car. Like I was shown in a vision that we're about to get hit.
Wow.
And then I went to tell my dad, and I kind of just like opened my mouth, like, but then we got hit. So I saw that we were about to get hit by a car, and then we got hit by a car um, in this car accident. And then this just started, it has happened to me. I know a lot of people, it happens to a lot of people. Um, but that's what I was starting to have these little things like that happen to me. And it happens now, even at karate a couple of years ago. I saw this little girl was about to fall off her chair, and then she did. And I never act upon them
Yeah.
because how do
I
you
guess
know,
you can't
like,
control it because it seems like it's right before. Is it almost right before it happens too?
yeah, it happens even like I just will out of nowhere I go, oh yeah, my husband's gonna just like forget his keys today. And then he does. And then I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get a
Like, here
flat
are your
tire
keys.
today. Yeah, like it always happens with flat tires, always, my whole life. It's like I knew I was gonna get a flat tire and I got a flat tire.
Oh,
So now when I see that, it happened to me a few weeks ago, I was like, darn it, I'm gonna get a flat tire. I know I'm gonna get a flat tire. And then I got one a couple days after. So
wow. What a cool gift in a way. I mean, I guess it's not
yeah,
always great to know, like, oh, boom, it happens.
yeah. I rarely ever act upon it because I'm thinking like, how am I supposed to tell this little girl that she's about to fall off her chair?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, and then but yeah, but so I've had little things like that. I don't know. I was buying little horoscope books since I was a young age with like my babysitting money, and just um, no
Curious. What's
idea.
your
But then
sign? What's your birthday?
Aquarius,
When?
January 25th. When's
I
yours?
do February 4th.
Oh, so you're Aquarius too?
I am. And my sister's
Nice.
birthday is the 26th of January.
Okay, cool.
That's
Nice.
cool. See, this is why we're so awesome.
Yeah.
I'm actually not so big. Like, I don't know all the stuff that is involved in astrology, but I tend to gravitate towards a certain sign, which is funny
Yeah.
based on some of the things I've talked about in past videos with the issues I'm going on, but I'm surrounded by a lot of fire signs, Leos in particular.
Okay.
Isn't that funny? But whenever I meet,
Yeah.
but over the past, since the pandemic started, I've been around a lot of air signs too. So
Nice.
tend to be around the air, tend to be around the fire. It's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah,
Cool.
absolutely. I suppose like the one thing that really, I suppose really got me started down the rabbit hole was years ago. It was long before 2020. I went and had a visit with a couple of friends, and I didn't even know what a Freemason was, and and we were having this conversation. I was like, I just we were talking about how we felt, and I said, I just feel really different. Like I don't know why I'm here either. I just feel really different. I've always felt really different to everyone else. Like I see, I'm really, I look outside of the box, and I don't know, maybe I see into stuff more than the average person. But I mean, a lot of us healers would,
Yeah. Right.
and he said to explain to me what a Freemason was. And I was like, I've never heard of a Freemason before. And as soon as
Yeah.
I found out what a Freemason was, that was it. That just started my rabbit hole. I somehow saw Carrie Cassidy's interviews, like her older interviews with Dolores Cannon and David Icke. And I
Yeah.
mean, from a long time ago, before many people even knew who they were, and Bob Dean and a bunch of them. And she goes on and explains about all the different alien races. And well, I don't really call them aliens. I mean, we're all kind of alien, aren't we,
Right.
to each other? We're all different beings of all the different beings out there. And that just started my rabbit hole, I guess, doing research into Freemasonry and what it was. And then, yep, that just started it for me. And then so when
I wonder why it was
2020,
the Freemasons. That's an interesting
I know, right?
exploration. Who was asking you about that? Where were you?
I was just at a friend's house, and we were we were just talking about, I don't know how we
That's
even
so
got into this
funny.
conversation. And they asked me if I knew what a Freemason was. I'm like, what's a Freemason?
Yeah,
They're all
I've learned
telling
so
me.
much about, I've met Freemasons, and then I'm like, I didn't really know what it meant either. And then I've heard so many, it's just so vast what a
Yeah,
Freemason is. And then there's a lot of secrets, so it's like kind of uncovering what is what. But yeah, that'll
yeah.
take you down a rabbit hole. That's for sure.
That's what accelerated my rabbit hole was the first
Yeah.
time someone told me what a Freemason was. And actually, they showed me their neighborhood, and their neighborhood was in a triangle. And they started showing me maps of different neighborhoods in Australia, and how like they knew who the Freemason was in their area, and how these so there's like all these, if you look on Google Maps, there's all these, they're all in triangles. And the friend who was telling me, her grandpa is a Freemason, and where he lives is at the top of the triangle of his area and neighborhood as well. And so they showed me where their house was, which was a separate neighborhood to their grandfather, who's a Freemason, and how their neighborhood was in a triangle, and the Freemason lived at the top of the triangle. It's
I mean, we
crazy.
have to have a whole other episode on this, because I'm now
Yeah,
curious. I'm like, what does that represent in
yeah,
the neighborhood now? So we'll have
yeah,
to, that's for another time for
yeah.
sure. Very
So
cool.
that's basically what started my awakening, I suppose, and my going down the rabbit hole was that
Yeah,
whole.
because you're just like, I know I'm different, but do you connect with Freemasons at some level, you think?
No, I think that where I said I felt different was I said I don't know why, but I just feel like there's something significant that's going to happen in this lifetime, and I'm going to be here for a reason, and I don't know what that is. I have no idea. But it was that he told me about Freemasonry in that conversation that sped up my awakening journey to where
Yeah.
I am now, I guess. No, there's no connection other than I found out that my dad came to visit, and I was visiting with my grandma and my dad, and they were like, and I said, "Do you guys know what a Freemason is or whatever?" And my grandma had mentioned that my grandpa must have joined the Freemasons and he tried to get out. And I don't know how, if that had what kind of impact that had on his life, but he must have joined and then realized what it was and um yeah, tried to get out of it or whatever. It
Well,
was
and that could
apparently
explain some of the depression too, you know?
yeah. So I don't know to what extent that had on his life and
Interesting.
whatnot of trying to get out and how that affected because you're not really meant to get out after you join, are you? So yeah. So
Wow.
yeah, I don't know. It just yeah, I started learning about all these different entities and these different uh different beings that are from different planets and things through, Dolores Cannon, David Icke, Carrie Cassidy, just a bunch of
And
those
is that why you
interviews.
started doing, is that when you decided to become a practitioner through this rabbit hole exploration?
Someone just told me one time, a friend, that they had a past life regression session, and I was just really curious. So I booked myself into one, um, and yeah, and actually, that first session was a past life before this one, and it's quite significant to my life now, I suppose, because I'm having a redo of that life basically in some regard. So my first past life regression session was a QHHT session with a lady who's now become a friend of mine now. And so it was in the early 1900s. I was married to the same husband that I have now, with the same three kids that I have now. And we lived on in the same area that we live now, in the rolling hills of where we live now. And we were like wheat farmers. And during that time was during World War One. And during World War I, which I found out later, there was a pandemic, like there was a pandemic, whatever you want to call
Another
it,
one?
with the Spanish flu. But what they did was during that time, they wouldn't let Australian soldiers who were fighting overseas back into Queensland, into our state and back into the country, because they were worried that they were going to bring the Spanish flu back and infect everyone. So, and that same thing happened in 2020. As soon as, I mean, they closed the borders so quickly. There was parents who were separated from children all around the world. There were people Aussies who couldn't get back into the country here for months and months and months. You had to apply for like a permit to get back into the country. And there was people stuck in Florida, stuck in the States, stuck in the UK, stuck in India, stuck everywhere who couldn't even get back into their own country for ages. Well, the same thing happened in that past life that I had before this, with the same thing. And people weren't really allowed, soldiers were allowed out, but they weren't allowed back in. And civilians like us weren't
And here,
allowed
these are
out.
your people, these are your countrymen that you're not letting back in.
Yeah, who fought
Right.
overseas, who fought like for our freedom.
So crazy
And
to me.
absolutely. So in this past life, I was quite depressed and I ended up drowning myself in a pond at our farm. And and yes, I went through the drowning process of that, and then I've heard, but I don't know if it's true or not. Like, I can't say for sure, but some people have the theory that if you do commit suicide, you end up right back and having a redo, right? And I don't know whether that's true or whether it's not true. Some people believe that, but I'm basically, I'm with the same partner, same
Yeah.
kids,
I
and
think it's
then
really
like
the soul's,
similar
I think it's the
events.
soul's decision, really. I think you have to eventually do it, but I think depending on how traumatic it is from what we've both learned, that some need to be in that safe place or that healing, there's like a healing place. If it's been so traumatic, they have to go there. But ultimately, you're gonna have to do it again.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
So maybe you were just
it's so
ready. Maybe
weird.
you're just like, okay, I got my healing. Got to go back in.
Yeah, I didn't probably fulfill my life mission and what I should have fulfilled at that in that time.
It's funny that you mentioned that because I don't know if you know Sarah Resman Cosme.
Oh
She's a
yeah, yeah.
QHHT level 3, and I
Mm.
bought her audiobook on a hypnotist
Oh
journey
yeah,
to Atlantis. And she
yeah,
regressed a woman who had no clue about anything. And she ended up in like this similar, like everything all ties in together because she was having pain in her brain. And then she ended up going to see doctors after doctors and then went to Sarah and then ultimately found out in a past life that they like were doing experiments on her brain because she was gifted and she ultimately ended up
yeah.
jumping off of a bridge killing herself and then so it's so also
It's amazing,
fascinating.
isn't it?
It really
Yeah,
is.
she had it. She had an interview with Laura Whitworth as well a while back. It's
Oh,
pretty
did
good
she?
too, that interview. And I was fascinated with that story with her client of that about having the brain tumors and having them. I'm pretty sure they were healed, were they not?
She
Through,
was healed from the session, absolutely. And
yeah,
she's done
absolutely
another.
amazing.
Yeah, she has two other books. There's one kind of around Egypt and then there's one with the Native American culture. And I
Mm,
watched her on Gaia because I love Gaia. And so she was interviewed by
yeah,
Regina Meredith on Open Minds, and she was talking a lot about this new book. And she said, we've all been indigenous. And it's like the white man is basically experiencing what they did to themselves, the torture that
yeah,
they did to themselves. It's really sad. Talks about the trail of tears and all that stuff. But this is why we do the work, because we're trying to remember, right? We're
yeah,
trying to remember
absolutely.
what we're doing here. What and Earth is now in evolving, right?
Yeah,
She's had her traumas. She's had all that she's going through. So we're all shifting, and she's shifting regardless. So it's like, hey, now's the time
yeah.
to
You're either
work.
gonna get on the train or you're not gonna get on the train.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly. Exactly.
yeah.
So that's really fascinating. So that you had that experience and came right on over. How did you feel after that session?
Yeah, well, it took a while to process everything. At the end of that session, I immediately started seeing into the future, and I saw my future self and um, what was sort of it was all my whole body was starting to burn up. I was just sitting in the garden in front of the house that I had then, but it was like in the future. And so the practitioner at the time actually just woke me up really quickly because I don't think well, in QHHT, we learned that if you're going into the future of this current life,
Yeah, you.
Dolores Cannon says, wake them up. And so I started seeing a future vision, and it was basically like this big light flash in the sky, basically. And my whole body started burning up so hot that I couldn't breathe. And I started feeling like I was suffocating because I couldn't breathe because my body was just like so hot. It almost kind of, what I got in my mind was almost like Hiroshima, like a
Mhm, mhm.
atomic bomb, but it wasn't. It was something else, a big solar flash or flash of something. And I don't know what it was to this day because she just woke me up so quickly. But my husband and I, having that past life, and then I later learned through more past life sessions that I've had several lives with him. He was an emperor in China, and I was supposed to marry him. And then he just, right before we got married, just went, nah, and then he just cut me off. And then another time we had a life together, apparently he just killed me. Like he just cut my head off or something
My
like that.
gosh.
So we've had several lives together. And it's weird because like I was living in Canada, and I was working as a flight attendant at the time for Air Canada, and he was all the way here in Australia. And I mean, where we're from on the global map is basically almost the furthest 2 points away that
Almost
two
impossible. Sounds like a twin
individuals could
flame.
be away from each other, right?
Right.
And then I had always been drawn to Hawaii, and I was like, I don't know why I'm drawn to Hawaii. I just was. And so I used, my free tickets that I got as a flight attendant. I went to Hawaii. I had 5 days off, which I didn't barely ever have 5 days. I'd have like 2 or 3. So I was like, I have 5 days off. I'm going to Hawaii. Who wants to come? All my friends are busy except for my one friend, Elliot. So I'm like, okay, come with me. We're going to Hawaii. And so we went there, and I'd never stayed in a hostel before, like a backpackers or anything like that. And we went and stayed in this backpackers, and I wasn't the type of person to just go and like introduce myself to guys, but I'm just sitting outside the backpackers, and I was in the hallway, and all of a sudden, like my husband, who wasn't my husband at the time, and his mate Steve-O came walking down the hallway, and I just immediately was like, "Hi, I'm Shannon." And as soon as we met, we both knew that we were going to spend the rest of our lives together. It was so weird because he wasn't even normally like look wise of someone who I would normally go for, you know?
Yeah.
He's, he's handsome, but it just wouldn't have
It
been
was like a
my
knowing that you can't
type.
explain.
Yeah, and then we didn't hang out. He was like, "Oh, do you want to go for dinner with us?" And then my friend Elliot was like, "No, we're busy," and stuff. So we never actually got to hang out and chat or anything. But he was staying in the same dorm room as us, and there was really only one night that they were there, and then the next morning he was leaving to fly back to Australia. And that morning, he just it was like 6 in the morning, and he was like pacing back and forth at the room and all nervous. And then he's like, can I like get your email address or something, right? And I was
I
like,
love it.
okay,
Can I get your email?
yeah,
Because how
yeah,
long ago
yeah.
was this?
2007.
That's great. Yeah, because we didn't have like the technology that we have now, right?
Yeah, he's like, can I get your email address? I was like, okay. So I wrote it down on a little piece of paper, and then whatever, I wrote it down on a piece of paper for him. And then he started saying like, "Oh, I can't come to Canada." Like I didn't know why it wasn't making any sense. And I was like, okay. And then I said, as he's leaving at the door, I'm like, don't lose that email address. And then he's like, I won't, I got it right here in my pocket. And then he walks out the door, and then I look down on the bed, and the little piece of paper with the email address is still on the bed. It was still on the bed. So he didn't actually take it. He walked out without it. He thought he had it in his pocket. And then about, 30 seconds later, he comes back in the room, and I went like this. We didn't even say anything, and I just handed him the paper. But it's just weird that how we met, that we didn't kiss, we didn't hang out, we didn't like spend any time
That was
together,
so quick. And now you're
but
married
we
to this man?
knew we were gonna spend the rest of our like
Did you
we
guys
were meant
tell it, or
to
you
be
just knew it? And
together.
then later on, when you guys met up, you're like, I knew we were going to be together.
Yeah, well, we basically only just emailed each other 2 or 3 times, and and then that was December 13th, 2007, and then I moved here in 2000, March 20th, 2008. We were engaged like a week later,
So
or
wait,
two
so how
weeks
many times did you
after.
see each other before you got engaged?
Um, we basically just emailed each other like maybe 3 times, and then we talked on the phone, and that was it. And then I came over and we had like our first kiss in the elevator and at a hotel that we met at in Melbourne. So it was that was it. And then we were married like a few months later
Oh
or
my
whatever. But
gosh, what a cool
and then
story.
but we didn't find obviously I didn't find out the connection until years later about having a past life with him and my life before this one, and then having the same exact same children that we have now
What do you
in
feel
this life,
about
you
like
know.
the soul's journey of having these karmic, do you think it's a karmic relationship? Do you think you guys are deeper than that? What do you think?
I believe we have uh like we have definitely have a karmic tie, you know, and um a reason, obviously, maybe some unfinished business from
Yeah.
some other past lives that we've had together. Um, I don't know if we're necessarily like soulmates or twin flames or anything, which just that I'm kind of under the I kind of get that we just have some unfinished business. Like
It's like, yeah, you
all of our
shouldn't be
past
killing
lives
me in
haven't
this
been,
lifetime.
yeah, like our I don't think many of all the past lives I've seen with him were great. Like I was depressed and he wasn't that nice to me in the life before this one, and then he was an emperor and of China, and I was supposed to marry him, and then just, you know, cuts me off right before we're to be married, you know, and that at
Yeah.
the I was then left to go live in poverty, you know, from that happening. And then, you know, another time where he just like whacks me over the head or, you know, chops my head off or something like that, then you know what I mean? It was like
Absolutely.
none of
You're
the
like, this is
lives
gonna
were
be the
good.
time. I kind of think about it like Groundhog Day. It's like, yeah, we didn't like that scenario. Let's do it again. Okay. Oh, I didn't like the
Yeah,
way that
it's
ended. Let's do it again.
yeah. So I mean,
Thank you for sharing those experiences, though. Really
yeah,
neat.
again, I had a session with Akashic Beck. I don't know if you met her yet.
Mm.
She goes into the Akashic records or whatever, and
You might have to
I
give me
had
some introductions to some of the
yeah,
SCHH people. Is she an SCHH too?
yeah. Well, in her session, you know, my I met my guide Austin, who was one of my children in a past life, in a few past lives, and so now he's my spirit guide, one of my spirit guides who looks after me in this life, and he, you know, he even was like calling me mama and stuff like that. And he said, I'm gonna show you a sign of so
You and the
a
children, see? See, you even have
yeah,
a
I
child
know.
that's your
Well,
guide.
he's grown up. He's grown up now. Like he would just he
Right.
said that he said in that reading that I was always ahead of my time, and that
Mm.
even back then we had a farm. We were living on a farm in Poland or something, and that he said that I used to make him like clean the kitchen and mop and do all these things at the time back then that only women did. And he used to think, why am I doing this? I'm a man or whatever. And then he said that when he was older and a grown up that and married with his own wife and children, that he would just do these things, and he realized that he said I was really ahead of my time or whatever. And then I made him into a gentleman because teaching him that things just need to be done rather than saying like, oh, that's the woman's job to do
Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
cooking and cleaning
Yeah.
back then. And yeah, so but he said in that session that I had with her, um he said it's time to cut your ties with your husband, and so that you know you can go on. He said you need to put the work in though, and it's up to you to put the work into, you know, to go on and be this healer and do things and and
So
whatever.
now
So
here you are doing
anyway,
all these healing things. Wow.
yeah, Yeah, and that's a thing. Like you can cut ties, these energetic cords with people that you're even in a relationship with, and it basically cuts the negativity that you have attached, this negativity attachment that you have. And we had, you know, all these past lives of negative attachment from
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
these terrible, you know, terrible things in these lives together happen. And yeah, like, and then, you know, so it's cutting those, getting rid of that negative energy and those cords from
Totally.
past lives
Yeah.
that you
And
had.
not only that too, it's like, cause some level, like, not that it's the exact same thing, but it's a level of like forgiveness, letting go of
Yeah,
whatever occurred. And even in this lifetime too, like, how many lives do we live with our partner in this lifetime? Because the past version of you is another version of yourself, right? And
yeah,
we've all explored parts of those relationships where maybe it got out of sync a little bit, or it wasn't as positive because, hey, I had to work all these hours and I never saw him, or vice versa.
yeah. And so, and like I always thought back in the day that it was love at first sight, you know, like when people say, "Oh, I don't believe in love at first sight." Well, I mean, I guess our story is a perfect example of that. But then now I think like, well, was it love at our first sight, or we're just like we're meant to be together because we have this this unfinished business or whatever, you know what I
Right.
mean? So
Right. I still
yeah,
feel like it
I
all
mean,
has like a meaning, right? It does.
yeah,
There's a reason why you guys are meant to be together and to do the work. And I feel the same way with my husband Brian. It's like we were friends, and then when we decided to not be friends, it was like we had our own firework display. When we first
yeah,
had our first kiss, it was like, what is this? And we were
yeah,
like 17. We were
yeah.
babies. But it
Mhm.
but we were filled with all this stuff that we're like was like, it was a deep, deep connection. And even when we had some ups and downs, we always found our way back to each other. And there's no turning back
Yeah.
now. So I was like, sometimes you just know, just like you guys knew we're supposed to be together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
I love
yeah.
that. Thank you for sharing this story. And
Yeah,
there's
and
still so much.
it hasn't been all peachy, like, you know, relationships are up and down, but for some reason, you know, obviously we were meant to be joined in this lifetime,
Absolutely. Well, and that's
and
how
you
all
know,
relationships.
relationships never are. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's, you know, it's funny how that happens,
It
you know.
is. It is.
Yeah.
So, do you want to share a little bit more about how you got into SCHH or QHHT? At what point did you decide that you wanted to be a practitioner?
Yeah, I had thought about doing it for years since the session I had had the first one, and then quite a few years went past where I didn't have any sessions, and then in 2020, with all this stuff happening, I just came across Laura Whitworth's stuff in my YouTube feed, and just her videos popped up. I started watching a few, and during a time where I felt like, why, how can no one see what's happening in the world?
Right.
Like, because
And you want
I,
to like scream with your megaphone, like, wake up, everybody.
yeah, exactly, right. So I, it just really spoke to me. And then just one day I thought, I just said out loud, to my husband, I said, if I could do one thing, like one job, um, for the rest of my life, I think I would just want to do um, hypnosis sessions on past life regression sessions on people, because you just get so much information out of them. The practitioner gets so much and the client gets so much. It's like a
Yeah,
win-win situation. And
absolutely.
you have so much information about the world, about different beings and different things in history. You learn about, you know, history because as you would know from doing it as well, I mean, they don't always tell us the truth about history and what happened. And so to see it come out in hypnosis sessions of people's stories of what really happened in their journeys, I really love that. Um,
I feel like
that
this
part
is
of
really
it.
where the learning is. I feel like this is the
Yeah,
school, you know,
I've
because
had information come up about the Bible, about what was put in the Bible and what wasn't meant to be in there that they've added in there. I had Jesus come through, Yeshua come through in a session with a lady, and we got a lot of information about that one, about Yeshua's life, and the pyramids and different things happening in Egypt, and kind of the story of what kind of happened to him, because a lot of people don't know about his journey. It hasn't been actually documented too much about what about a lot of his journey. We just hear about the cross and this and this.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we had a little change of scenery here, but back with Shannon to continue her story and journey with quantum healing hypnosis, soul center healing hypnosis. We just finished talking a little bit about your multiple relationships, past lives with your husband.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah. And I had mentioned about how in the past life before this one, how I had drowned myself in the pond, right? And so that was another thing that was there was all these different things that had been carried over from that past life into this life. And um when my children were really little, I started getting really depressed as well, similar to how I felt in that life as well. I was going through the same depression, the same emotions, which was odd because my whole life I've just been such a happy person and loved life. No matter what life has thrown at me, I've always been able to wake up every morning and just go, be happy. But I was at this really low point when my children were really little that I got really depressed. Like I'm living in Australia. I have no family here. I had three kids under the age of three. And my oldest had just turned three, and it was really, really busy. But at the time, my husband and I really weren't getting along. And so I felt really isolated. I had no friends. We had just moved to the Sunshine Coast here where he grew up, and I didn't know anybody. And yeah, it was just such a mission to even go out to meet people at the time, because getting three little ones ready
Oh
to go
yeah.
out was just crazy. It was like having triplets almost, because there was three of them so
There you
little.
got three with diapers on still too. It's a lot. Ooh.
Yeah. And it just got to the point where I was at the lowest point of my life where I, had those thoughts of hanging myself in the garage one day, and thought about hanging myself in the garage, and then I thought, oh, well, the kids will only be home for like an hour, and then my husband would come home or doing it right before. But I couldn't do it. I couldn't leave my children. My children are like everything to me.
Yeah.
And it was a huge wake up call for me, because I thought, what is going on? I have been such a happy, positive person my whole life. I've dealt with way worse than this. I mean, I was a stay-at-home mom. I didn't have to work or anything, and I should have been super happy. I had three little ones. All I wanted to do was be a mom, And at that point, I was just like, something needs to change. Like I can never be at like that ever again, and be at that low point where I am ever like that, and I just had to turn things around.
Why do you think we
Turn
get to
things
that
around.
point? Well,
Well,
ultimately,
you know, one of your interviews with I forget who it was now, I thought about that, and then I talked to other people who are going on this awakening journey as well, and it's such a common thing, and that's the only reason why I'm mentioning it, in this interview, I think, is because it's such a common thing where people hit their rock bottom, what they consider their rock bottom at the time where you feel stuck, you feel like there's no way out of your situation.
Mhm.
And you don't know what to do to get out of your situation or make your situation better. And it's at that like rock bottom low point in your life where a lot of people do have that wake up call, and it can have a significant effect on their awakening journey as
Absolutely.
well, into to moving along into their purpose. And you go about life, and this is for a lot of people, not knowing your purpose. It can cause a lot of um, depression in people and uncertainty about people's lives, and they think, what am I doing here? I'm in this rat race, and
Right.
um, and I'm just working and doing this, and like, what is my purpose? But then you get to a point in your life, and Danielle, before we started this interview today, I had a lady call me who she emailed me about having an SCHH hypnosis session with me. And I spent 2 hours on the phone with this lady right before this
Oh my
interview
gosh.
now. I know. Because just talking about her situation, and we're going to book a session in or whatever, but um, and she's feeling at probably one of her lowest, if not her lowest point or whatever. And it just, yeah. And then in one of your interviews with one of the other interviews you did where people had mentioned that in their stories, and then I've heard it from others, I thought this is really significant to people's journey
Absolutely.
of their turning point for a lot of people.
Well, I remember for me personally, um, I didn't think I was going to harm myself, but I was at a point where I'm like, I don't know if I can continue to keep going on. Like whatever
Yeah.
this is, I don't know how many more days I have of doing this life. Either I was going to have to do something completely different in my life, but there was moments where I just wanted to pause and I wanted to go away for a while. I just wanted to rest. I just didn't want
Yeah.
to deal with, I couldn't face the continuous pressure of something
Yeah.
that was drowning me. I felt like I was like suffocating.
Yeah, exactly.
So I can totally
Yeah.
relate to what it's like where like I can't do one more minute because you have no support from your spouse, been there because he
Yeah.
was never there. I had two little ones and I have all this stuff that I'm supposed to take care of that I can't physically take care of.
Yeah.
So I was like, this world something's got to give because I'm gonna break. So
Exactly.
I now
Yeah.
can understand where people can get to that point where, they just need that minute to pull it together, just be like, okay, something's happening here. And for my rock bottom, it was like, you're ready to know the truth of what your life is all about. Because
Yeah.
this reality was so awful. It wasn't the reality that I had to continue doing.
Exactly. And it was like, how is this my reality? It's like,
Yeah.
this is not what I planned. This is not how I pictured my life as a stay-at-home mom with 3 kids. And this is not how I expected it to be or whatever. And because I was always I've always been a happy, grateful person, and so thankful for everything in my life, even through hard times, that I went, okay, something is not right here. Like, something has to change, because this isn't normal of feeling like this isn't normal, like, for me, and who
Yeah.
I usually am, this happy person or whatever.
Yeah.
So
Well, I'm
yeah,
really
that
thank
definitely
you for
had a
sharing that because I think it does need to be heard. People need to hear true story. People that presume to be happy, right? It doesn't even have to be. I want to say this out loud because it's not someone that has a mental disorder. No one. It's not always when someone is. It's something that ultimately, almost like you lose control, but it's not like you have control anyway. But we're trying to feel like we're in control of something, And then
Yeah.
we've got all these other factors going on. So that's one scenario. However, I think it's pretty significant that you've lived this life with your spouse like multiple times. And the
I
reoccurring
know,
theme
right?
was ending it traumatically. You know what I
Mm.
mean? So who knows at the parallel time that that's exactly what is happening and it triggered that exact moment, you know?
Yeah.
I was thinking about that the other day when I was sharing my experience about the burning that I was feeling. And
Oh
I
yeah.
remember feeling I was burning. I feel like I was consciously being burned and still alive. I don't think I was
Mm.
burned to death. So I
Yeah.
feel like
Wow.
maybe in that parallel time, I don't know the answer, but I experienced the burning sensation, the continued burning sensation for
Yeah.
speaking my truth or whatever have you. And I'm consciously aware of it and feeling it. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Like that comes up so much in sessions of people being burned alive for speaking their truth. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
perhaps that is what
Well, we'll
happened.
have
Yeah.
to explore that. But whether it's something we can consciously be aware of, the point of it, I think, is to let it go, because there's something that I'm holding on to that I have to pass on to move forward now into this new version of myself. And same thing for you. You were able to be like, wait a
Absolutely.
minute, pause. No, that's not the story I'm going to live. I'm going to now be even more abundant and expand myself, which you have.
Yeah. And that was like that was a big moment that I had to get over because in the past life, I didn't get over that. I just
Yeah,
had those thoughts and then drowned myself in the pond, right?
right.
But I got over it in this life and came out the
Yeah,
other side. And then the thing I want to tell people too is when you're in that situation where you are in that really like dark moment, a lot of the time you don't know what your purpose is, obviously, because if you did and you felt you had a purpose, you wouldn't probably be in that situation or in that low moment. Or maybe you do have a purpose, but you're not don't know how you're feeling stuck or whatever to get there. Um, and with this person who called me today, who was feeling in that low moment as well before our interview, I just told her like, it will get better. This may be a turning point in your life. And like what I want to tell other people is you will get through it. And every little thing that we do in our journey has some sort of significance to our purpose. Even things like when I took beauty school, I thought, what the heck is this? And I thought there was no purpose in giving people pedicures all day or whatever, right? Or manicures. I thought that it was purposeless at the time, right? But now it's helped me so much. I did a lot of massage and touch, and I learned a lot about energy exchange and different things in that has actually helped me with my purpose today. And so even the things that seem meaningless, like maybe you worked a job that you thought was meaningless and it wasn't what you wanted to do, everything has a significant reason. And when you one day it's just going to be like you're going to have this epiphany or this light bulb moment, or you're going to realize. But I think we find out what everything is in divine timing, and we find out what our purpose is when we're ready to step into our purpose and to take on that purpose as our journey. And then it just makes everything that happens in your life, whether it's little things like being in gymnastics or being bullied at school or this or that or whatever, all of a sudden it just all comes full circle into your life at some point in your life where you go, I get it now. I get why I went through all of that stuff. I get why I was in a car accident. I understand why this bad thing happened to me. I understand why this good thing happened to me. And it just all makes sense. And so that I've gotten to that point. Um, for years I was like, what am I doing? What is my purpose? Blah, blah, blah. And where I am now, I feel I've come full circle with all the good, the bad, the ugly, whatever.
Yeah.
And I can just look at it and go, yeah, and appreciate even the tough um, things that we go through. I look at it more as like, what am I learning from this? And it's what have I learned from this experience? And so I look at every experience now as like a learning thing. Like I'm experiencing this as a soul in this body, and I'm experiencing this challenge today, and why, and what's the reason behind it. And I've been able to look at things a little bit more in a positive note that way, even I guess the little bad thing, frustrating things that would seem negative that happen in your life, I see them as challenges or hurdles to get over, because once you do, you're just like, yeah, I did that. I got through that and I figured it out. And I was able to stand on my own 2 feet or whatever. So
it's like, well, that was amazing in itself. So thank you for those wise. That's why you're called the wise healer, because you're very.
So the reason, the story behind that one too, because it sounds like I was like, I don't know if I want to go with this
No,
name,
but that was a lot of wise healing, and just like you did, like, I mean, seriously, you just really dropped a lot of good truths to our stories. I think that, and I'll let you explain wise healer in a minute, and then we'll kind of wrap up, and then we'll have to meet again, because this is so amazing. But it's true. I think we all need clarity. Not only do we want our purpose, but we want clarity. I mean, we come into this world and we're all like, at the end of the day, there's a moment we're like, what the hell am I doing here? And this can't be all that there is. Wake up. It's like, wake up, sip your coffee, go to work, do this, repeat, boom. Like at some point you get to this, like, this cannot be. Even now, like I'm still at a version where I talk about 3D, 5D. I want to wake up and be like, we're taken care of, we're held, and boom, what do we want to explore today? Like we should be that in the now moment. That's what we're meant to do. We're meant to explore. We're curious beings. We need to get to that place, because ultimately we're in a system that is not in alignment with our soul.
Yeah, absolutely. And the wise healer thing is, that's actually what my name means. So Shannon means wise one. And then my middle name is Lee, which means healer in Celtic. And then Gardner is like the keeper of the garden.
I love it.
So I was like, that's where the name wise healer comes from. I wasn't like, I just picked it and I thought, oh man, if people don't know the actual
you didn't have just a
why
download or anything?
That name, they might think that I'm like, that it's coming from a place of ego or whatever.
But I never even, that was the name I was given. Shannon, knowing you, Shannon, it doesn't come off like that at all, actually.
Okay, that's good. I was a little bit like, I hope it doesn't come off that way. But like that was the name that my mom gave me, and my 4 other siblings, they all were named after someone in my family, right? And I said to my mom as an adult, I said, why was I the only kid I didn't get named after anybody? Like, my sister has middle names after my grandma. My brothers are named after my dad and my grandpa. My sister's named after my aunt. And I'm just like, Shannon, no one in my family is named Shannon.
Like, we just didn't know what to do with you. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Like, no, you were a very special child.
She was like, I don't know. Like, and she was like, I don't know. So obviously I was meant to have that name. And obviously I've heard too that, the name comes to the mother from above, and they get that. We get that name that our children are supposed to be for a reason. And so,
well, I was just gonna say, I think it's time to wrap up, even though I this was so exciting, and I feel like there's so much more we can discuss, but I'm grateful to have you on again and jump on, especially as we go through a journey together. Now we finally have made this happen, and I thank you, for sticking it out while we had some technical problems here. But is there any last final things that you want to talk a little bit about, how people can find you before we wrap up?
Sure. I just have a website. It's wisehealer.love, and a YouTube channel, Wise Healer Quantum Healing, so people can find me in those 2 places. And I think I didn't really have much else to say. I've got many more stories, but we'll leave those for another time.
Perfect. Well, I thank you for joining us today. And I want to thank the audience for having me. Thank you. And I want to thank the audience for tuning in to the Conscious Broadcast. And we will see you next time on another episode. Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.